Coming up on this episode of the Prompt First, Ask Later podcast.
Being a salesperson requires you to not only manage the actual human connection and the sale, but the entire administrative apparatus around the sales process. So AI is not, that I believe, going to replace the human-to-human connection.
Hey, it's the AI guys from Spedge back with you. It's been a little bit since we've been talking about this AI stuff, but this is another episode of the Prompt First, Ask Later podcast. I'm Ken Peel, and the CEO and founder of Spedge. Sagar is back with me after his world travels. So how you doing, man?
Good, man. It's good to be back in front of the mic. This is the stuff that I love to do.
Yeah.
And just happy that we're able to share some knowledge with the world. So good to be back, Ken.
So one of our last episodes that we talked about was about how you used, I think, Gemini to plan out your trip to London and give an itinerary and all that stuff. I'm really curious, how did that work out for you? Did you guys stick to that pretty good, or did you deviate, or mixture?
I think a mixture. I think what it did for me was it gave us a little bit of a foundation on a starting point and a foundation on where we could begin our travels.
Yeah.
So for context, I was out traveling London, Dublin, and then a week in LA just for conferences. I'm part of EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization. And then we have some family in London. So we did a London trip for 5 days, 7 days in Dublin, 7
you
days
seem
in
like
LA,
you got family all over the place.
We're everywhere, man.
I guess.
Just pockets of people, right? So went for conferences and family, but it was absolutely an incredible starting point because if you recall, Ken, from our previous episode, I primarily used Gemini and Notebook LM to create the itinerary. What that helped us do was then have a starting point for where we could begin our trip. And there was a lot of touristy stuff that we did in London, maybe a little bit less in Dublin and Ireland, but it absolutely gave me direction. Had I not used a tool, or if Gemini and Notebook LM were not as sophisticated, I can only imagine being a guy that's not great with organizational design and coming up with an itinerary.
Yeah.
We would have ended up being there and just figuring out day of, what do we want to do? So I would have had to spend the time there figuring out an itinerary versus pre-planning it with the help of AI to then help me use the time that I'm actually there on the ground for stuff to actually do and not planning and deciding and this fatigue that comes from deciding.
Yeah.
My wife is awesome at planning, but I wanted to give her a chance to just enjoy and be tourist. It shouldn't default to her every time.
Sure.
So it was extremely helpful because I literally had an entire slide deck of places to see. And it was a hybrid. We did some of the stuff from the plans and we deviated a little bit based on how we felt once we were actually there.
Yeah, but you didn't have to spend all that time prepping everything while you were there. You kind of had an idea what you wanted to do before you got there. So it helped, I'm sure, to, like you said, get your feet on the ground and running before you even got there, which I'm sure was pretty helpful. And so what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is the agents that people talk about, AI agents compared to chatbots and different things like that, because there's some confusion. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was talking with a guy and we were talking about AI stuff and how he's using it in his business that he does. He's a loan agent, and how he's been using AI and doing that. And he kept referencing ChatGPT when we were talking. And so I just kind of popped in and I said, hey, have you ever tried Claude? And it was interesting because he goes, it's interesting you brought that up because I use Claude all the time, but to most people, they don't know what that is or understand. So I just throw in the generic ChatGPT so that they kind of get an idea what I'm using. So that's an interesting thing, because we talked about one time how Kleenex versus tissue, where Kleenex is a brand name, tissue is the product, and now people are interchanging AI tools with a chat GPT because people know what that is and name recognition with that. So let's dive into the difference between, say, a chatbot and an AI agent and what makes them different.
I'm not surprised that this gentleman had that reaction for using a generic term like ChatGPT versus Claude, which is also another exceptionally well-designed AI product. Most people associate AI with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That's just the default. And what OpenAI has done in their first mover advantage is they've become the brand name that most people recognize.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that this individual came to you and said, hey, I'm using ChatGPT. He didn't know your level of sophistication at AI. He didn't know you're at SPEDGE and the work that you do. And
Right.
Ken Peel is actually freaking bleeding edge with AI. He's not just a novice that's just learning how to use ChatGPT for the first time. So not surprised. I see that often when I do my speaking engagements. I had a chance to do that just last week with my wife, which was super special. We were in front of a room of occupational therapy clinicians and academics.
Yeah.
Some were tech savvy, most were learning about it for the first time. And when I polled the audience and said, who's used ChatGPT before, majority of the room raised their hand or they've at least heard about it. And then when I asked the same question around Claude or Gemini, not as many hands. So not
Yeah.
surprised. Most people think of AI as ChatGPT. The question you originally asked me, and this definition may change later this year because of the velocity at which AI is moving right
Yeah.
now. What's the difference between a chatbot and an AI agent? And I truly believe 2026 has totally become the year of AI agents now because we've just been conditioned with chatbots up until this point. The main difference, a chatbot is essentially a piece of technology that allows you to have a conversation to then help you learn or identify something. So chatgpt.com, the most basic version of it, is a chatbot.
Okay.
You ask ChatGPT a question or you tell it something that you're trying to accomplish. It'll either research for you, crawl the web, give you an answer, help you brainstorm. It's conversational. There's back and forth. At the end of that conversation, though, typically the action has to be taken by the human operator. Same with Claude, depending on what version. Same with Gemini. The basic functionality of an front end of an LLM is generative AI chatbot, where it can communicate in natural language, English, and many other languages.
Okay.
Now, chatbots have multimodal capabilities where you can talk to a chatbot via text and it writes back, called inference. It writes back to you in text. That's one modality. That's a text modality. You can do voice modality where you speak and it speaks back to you in whatever language you're speaking in, so voice to voice. ChatGPT and Gemini also have the camera capability. So if you have the mobile app, you could point your session of Gemini to something and say, hey, Gemini, what's in front of me? And it will tell you because it's got visual capability. So that's visual video modality. So at the end of the day, chatbots are conversational capabilities that help you have a dialogue and either search or identify something.
Okay. All right.
The difference between that and what an agent does, in the chatbot scenario, you're the human, you have to take the action typically. In the sense of an agent, you can still have that conversational capability. You still talk back and forth,
Right.
but then the action can be taken by that agent. The agent can do the task. Doesn't necessarily have to be the human that does it. And there are also agents that are autonomous where you just have to say something or it's monitoring something and it will take the action without even asking you. Of course, with some predefined guardrails, because we don't want the agent to
Yeah.
send a wire transfer to a vendor right away without some type of internal approval, especially if a job hasn't been done. So that's the main difference. Chatbots typically require the human operator to decide and take the actual action. The agent side is more so the AI can take limited actions as well. And when you hear these stories about the open clause of the world and Claude Cowork and all these other variations of these agentic orchestration tools, that's really what's been happening the first 4 months of this year, where we are now graduating from a chatbot that lives inside of a web browser or on a mobile phone. And instead, we're moving to a agentic capability where the AI can do the task on your behalf. And there's pros and cons for both. But that's
Yeah.
typically the difference between the two as of today. There's, of course, variations of how agents operate and their sophistication, their autonomous nature, what type of chatbot. That's the definition I tell people is
Yeah.
chatbots require the human to take action. Agents typically allow the AI to take action on your behalf.
Yeah. So I guess a simple way for maybe to explain it is a chatbot answers a question, but the agent takes and does something with that answer and performs something that you've asked it to do. Like, for example, in Claude Cowork, I created a routine or a skill or whatever you want to say, a project where I asked it to build something with information that I want every day. And I said, at 5:45 a.m., I want you to scrape these sources that I gave you, and I want you to put that in a Word document and place it in my documents folder, and here's where it's at. And then now every morning at 5:45 in the morning, I open up my documents folder, and there it is. There's my report that I wanted done. So is that the use of an agent then? Would that be considered?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I know there's going to be varying opinions for viewers that are going to see or listen to this podcast. This is our definition. That's absolutely an agentic type of action because you, outside of the initial routine configuration, you are removed from the entire process outside of then navigating to your document folder and opening that Word document that Claude created, Cowork created.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely like chatgpt.com or claude.ai on a web browser doesn't have access to your local documents folder. So
Right.
it may be able to compile information from multiple sources. There's still a human action, which is what Ken has to copy and paste the output into a Word document, save it to your documents folder.
Yeah.
So that's the graduation of AI existing just in a browser. And now Cowork is unique, allowing AI to live beside you locally on your computer. OpenClaw, similar, where it allows you to interact with stuff, although a little bit rough around the edges. But yeah, that's absolutely what we're talking about. And that, I believe, is where value gets unlocked for organizations, is when agentic work happens. Because it doesn't make any sense for me to have, and I'm just going to say this lightly, it doesn't make any sense that employees just need a glorified search tool.
Right.
That doesn't improve economics of an organization.
Right.
But when you have agents that can offload actual creation of tasks or execution of tasks, that's pretty amazing to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And we're entering that world now. And organizations are trying to figure out how to safely do that with some guardrails put into place.
Yeah. So that guy I was telling you about that uses Claude and some other tools to automate some of the things that he does was telling me about a guy that he knows that gets roughly 1,000 to 2,000 emails a day, and he was having to go through those to determine which ones are the important ones, which ones I can wait on, things like that. And he used AI tools, and that was taking him probably 4 hours a day out of his day just to go through some of this stuff and then to answer them. But he set up a tool to where he said, I want you to take these names, and I want you, whenever an email comes in from that person, I want you to earmark or flag that for me so that I know those are important and I can deal with those issues first. And he said he went from 4 hours a day of going through some of these emails. Now he can take care of it all in 45 minutes. So that's freed him up so much more. Plus, he's not missing out on some of the important communication that he needs to do in his business, and it's keeping him more organized. So, I mean, that's an example, real world example right there, where somebody's taking these tools and they're improving what they're doing so that they can be more productive in other areas. So how about you? What are some real world examples that we've come across with Spedge or with you in other areas that you've seen how an agent can really make a difference?
The biggest thing that, and I love that example because that is a process or workflow that is a mundane, repetitive task that just has to be done.
Yeah.
And traditionally, prior to the emergence of AI, it was a person. Someone would have to go and just maintain that inbox.
Yeah.
And with people, we're going to have sick days. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make errors in judgment. We're going to double click on something when we shouldn't have. And it just, 4 hours a day, that's 20 hours a week. That's insane.
Yeah.
If you quantify that over monthly, annually, that's almost 900 hours a year, maybe more on just managing email.
Yeah.
Like you think about this individual's hourly rate that he charges clients or whatever, let's put it at $50 an hour. I mean,
that's
the math.
That's some change right there.
That's some change. So up until this point, the only solution was a human being had to be contracted or hired to do mundane tasks.
Yeah.
Now I think of that individual, email absolutely for me as well. And I think of how many other things require ongoing execution and maintenance in our lives that the only solution up until now was a human being doing the work.
Yeah.
So I think what AI agents have done for our customers is allows tasks that are very repetitive and mundane to be executed almost flawlessly.
Is there some trust there that needs to be built? Because I know that we've talked before with internal meetings, different things like that, about there's an education level that needs to be addressed, I think, because there's a lot of employees that don't use AI and they're either fearful of it or they don't understand it. And there's some education that needs to take place so that they can understand and unlock those tools that will make them more efficient.
You're so right. And I think the education boils down to an understanding of how the technology works. I've been in so many rooms full of people that walk in, they raise their hands and they're vulnerable. They say, listen, I have no idea what I'm talking about. From an AI perspective, I'm scared. I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know why I'm here in this room right now, but I'm here
Yeah.
and I'm here to listen. And I think that's amazing because that means you give AI a chance. It takes one session to sit through. It doesn't necessarily have to be Sagar. It could be anybody that knows what they're talking about. It takes one session for someone that doesn't know and is worried and scared about AI for them to then become a believer that understands the capability of this amazing technology. And it's not perfect. AI makes a lot of mistakes. It's not
Sure.
doom and gloom. I know there's headlines that knowledge work may go away. I disagree. I think knowledge work will be elevated to the next level of creativity for
Yeah.
humans. So there is a lot of education that has to happen, Ken. There's a lot of advocacy, there's training. And the reason we do that is because humans have been so conditioned over how many decades and centuries, maybe thousands of years, that in order for something to happen, human labor has to be placed behind it for it to get done.
Yeah.
That's just the norm that society has been built around is human labor does things that require needing to be done. Now for the first time just very recently can the need for humans to do things be outsourced fully to a machine where the human doesn't have to outline every single step of the way in order for it to get done. The
Yeah.
AI decides how it gets to that end result. Is it messy? Does it make mistakes? Are there security implications and risks? Absolutely. But the point is, we're now in an era where execution can be fully done mostly by an AI agent as long as you have the right parameters and you're very clear on what good looks like. That's where a lot of organizations get into trouble. They don't build what we call evaluations. They don't tell the AI, like, hey, if you're going to do this, here's what really good or perfect looks like.
Yeah.
And then the AI will try to get there. So, yes, we now live in an era where human labor, human effort is not required. And people just don't understand that. So, it's our role as AI practitioners and everyone that's listening that's an AI practitioner. It's your duty to explain this change and shake off all this conditioning that humans have to do everything.
Yeah.
And until we get to that stage, AI agents, AI usage, chatbots, they just won't make their way inside of organizations on a widespread adoption level. I talk a lot about this in my book, AI Culture Blueprint, and I advocate for this stuff when I'm speaking in front of crowds. We have to eliminate this uncertainty and lack of education around AI's capabilities because once there's someone that's believing in AI, and you've seen this, Ken, with the
Yeah.
clients that we work with, you get one thing in there and you get a room full of folks that are skeptical. They're kind of scratching their head. They're like, what's Spedge all about? Let's see what they got. Then we show them. Immediately, you have like a line of people that are like, oh, in our accounting department, we pull reports manually. I wonder if AI can just pull that data for us so we could focus on making sure the data is accurate.
Yeah.
Or, hey, salespeople, we have calls that we do. And I want to know in our sales calls, did we miss something in the transcript? Did we not understand what the client was inferring, even if they didn't say it accurately?
Yeah.
Absolutely. AI can help you with that objectively because AI listens to call transcripts very differently than a human. We listen for emotion and connection and what we feel is important, but the AI has none of that bias or judgment. It just listens. So there absolutely has to be an education piece and awareness piece. And I think the sooner we can get to the front of that, the easier AI adoption is going to happen, whether it's a simple chatbot, whether it's a sophisticated agent, a hybrid of both. but it's our job as AI practitioners. Half of the responsibility is education and awareness. The other half is good design and proper implementation.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on the Prompt First Ask Later podcast. And we're talking about AI agents and the misconception about those compared to chatbots, things like that. And so as far as like salespeople, you brought up the sales department. A lot of times salespeople, they want their hands on stuff because they're making a judgment call and they're doing things like that. How do we get, I guess, people like that to understand that this is a tool that can really help them and they're still in control, but they could 10 times themselves if they use these tools?
Being a salesperson requires you to not only manage the actual human connection in the sale,
Yeah.
but the entire administrative apparatus around the sales process. So AI is not, that I believe, going to replace the human to human connection. When I talk to Ken and we talk about dogs and puppies,
Yeah.
like the connection we make is so unique to us as humans because we as humans know what it's like to come home after a busy day and see your pup just waiting for you at the front door ready to play.
Yeah.
Like I can't explain that feeling to an AI right now. So that human to human connection from a sales perspective absolutely has to be done by the human being. But there's this entire apparatus of administrative burden around sales that still has to get done. You have to identify the email address of the prospect you're trying to contact. Take the call notes and summarize them and put it into a proposal. You have to turn the proposal into a nicely designed PowerPoint deck. You have to schedule time to follow up with the prospect a week from your initial call. You have to identify other stakeholders. Like there's all this mundane stuff that I would argue is not human to human connection, which is what moves sales forward, but it's absolutely necessary. The operational side of sales that has to get done. And what I said earlier, historically, the only way we knew as organizations how to solve for that was to what? Hire people in sales operations roles or admin assistant, executive assistant. There are people that support the operations of the administrative burdens around sales so that salespeople can go and human connection move the needle. I see so many sales folks or solo practitioners that are burdened by this administrative apparatus around sales that they spend most of their time doing the administrative stuff and less time doing the actual selling and talking to the humans. So AI now, for the sales folks that are watching, you can remove the burden of sales operations and do what you do best. Go close the deal. Go build rapport and trust.
Yeah.
Go overcome objections and leave all the mundane tasks out of your purview. And some would argue, wait, Sagar, isn't that going to replace jobs? Isn't that going to create a disruption in society for sales operations folks? It will, but I would argue, I'm sure most sales operations folks that are tasked with having to input data into a CRM or capture things and make PowerPoints, probably not the most exciting thing to do. I'm just generalizing. Maybe some folks love doing that stuff, right? Wouldn't those folks want to help in the actual closing and human connection process?
Oh, yeah.
So I think for sales, it's how to remove the administrative burden around the sales operations process with the use of AI so that we have better close rates. We connect with our prospects better. We make more money. We generate more revenue.
Yeah.
So that's really what I look at from a sales perspective. It's we have to have good understanding of where humans need to operate and where the machines can do a much better job than we can.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that we've probably seen companies fail in some of these areas before. Either they've not gotten the right information, the right data organized right, or things along those lines. So if I'm a business leader and I'm hearing us talking about using these tools to make us more efficient and to take away some of the mundane duties that we've been doing for centuries, how do you address like a business owner, business leader, CEO, and really, I don't want to use the word, encourage them to do it, but how do you make them aware that, hey guys, this is something that is advancing each and every day more and more to where it can do more and more, and they don't have to be fearful of using stuff like this.
The fear around AI is typically rooted in not knowing how the technology works. The best way to understand how the technology works is by using it. The best way to use this technology is to pick an AI tool, spend a weekend, maybe an hour or two, and just put in some prompts so you understand its capabilities. So The fear is typically rooted in not knowing how it works. What I tell business leaders all the time is that when you're running an organization, there are things in your organization that create pain. Pain is defined in three ways. Number one is how much time it takes to do something.
Right.
There's a lot of tasks inside of organizations that are being done for the sake of being done, but they're very inefficient. They take too long because we are limited beings. Humans can only read so fast. We can only search and digest so many pieces of information at once. So, pain, you're spending a lot of time doing something. That's number one. Number two, something that costs a lot of money to do on a regular basis. That is something AI can absolutely help with. If you have a six-figure a year employee that's doing work that is not justified or may not be the best use of this person's time, that is a problem for you as a business owner because your
Yeah.
highly salaried employees are not justifying the cost to the business by doing things that may not be valuable. And you define what valuable is for your organization. So
Right.
what do we talk about? Time costs too much to do it, or it can't be easy. Number three, it can't be easily reproduced.
For
You have to
example,
run the same thing. You have to run the same thing over and over again. And every time you do it, you get a different result. That's pain. It's
right.
time, money, and repetition.
Yeah. So, how have you seen a real world example, if you will, of taking some of this and maybe a success story of how somebody's taken these tools, and they've turned it around and they've actually come out on the other side and said, wow, how did we survive without doing this in the past?
I think the best example that I can give you is these meeting transcription AIs that exist.
Yeah.
There's so many flavors of them. There's limitless versions of these tools.
Right.
You got Copilot for Teams. You have Google Meet for you have Gemini for Google Meet. There's so many that are out there. But what these meeting transcription tools have done for folks is, number one, this is my personal experience, where when you're in the meeting, I'm paying more attention to connecting with the other individual and understanding and articulating and having a dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have to spend, and of course people will disagree because they'd rather take notes because it lands better in their memory. But for me, I don't need to write notes down to commit to my memory. I'd rather the memory be in an AI tool. And will it come to bite me in the butt one day? Maybe, because the AI tool might go away. Sure. Cross the bridge when I get there. But meeting transcription tools capture the information, give you a summary, generate an email for you. You can take that and put it into a game plan to help you with the next step. That has been immediate. I think back pre-AI, Ken, I had a notebook from this company called Remarkable. It's like a digital notebook where
Yeah.
you can take notes and it saves it. I'm sure viewers and listeners can relate, but I used to use that pretty religiously. And I had a subscription to it. I'd write everything down. And I just noticed that when I would write down meeting notes, I would miss certain cues or nuances or inferred body language because I take my eyes away from the screen to write something down for a split second, and there may be an eyebrow raise or a twitch or something
Yeah.
that I would miss. So I think the meeting transcription tools have completely changed how people show up for meetings.
Oh,
You
yeah.
could argue it could be good or bad, but that's an immediate thing that comes to mind where in my head, I'm like, how did we ever have virtual calls on Zoom and Teams without some type of transcription to write down everything that was said? Not so that you can hold it against somebody, but man, I'm a human being and unfortunately the truth is we're all sitting on computer screens, we're multitasking. It is a very interesting time right now because most people have calls remotely. They're distracted. You might have a Teams window open, but you have an email or Outlook or something. So you miss things. So meeting transcription for sure has been number one,
Yeah.
front and center, where the adoption has been absolutely amazing for folks.
Yeah. So let's kind of turn the tide a little bit. Let's talk about what you're seeing down the road. Things have changed so much just in this first 4 months of this year. And I get news articles and things delivered to me each and every day about how AI is changing and it's doing different things. What are you seeing that coming up maybe later this year or even into next year, how things are changing? Are you seeing anything that's pretty exciting for you?
Two things that I think are really exciting that I see right now. Number one, the more and more use of agents. Organizations are starting to warm up to the fact that not only do they need AI to help them identify information and search things faster, but they also need execution done. So that's exciting for me because now the technology exists where every human being in an organization, doesn't matter where in the organization, whether you're an executive, senior leader, or frontline employee, everybody has an opportunity to have their own AI agent that learns how they operate, that can absolutely be a brainstorming partner, that can take off some mundane tasks. Is that going to create some type of societal displacement? Absolutely. Is that going to cause people to have to upskill and change jobs and do different things? Yes, the change is coming. So agents number one. Number two, what I think is really interesting, something we're building at Spedge, which we're going to be announcing here soon, is more of like this concept of like organizational memory, where companies, given the fact that they're going to soon have humans and AI agents collaborating and coexisting together, a centralized place where company information, intelligence, the reason why you make decisions, the ability to just chat with the state of your organization. I know that's a crazy thing to say. That's starting to emerge right now, where every decision that gets made has context behind it. Every email or document safely has some type of value. Every conversation can help you become better tomorrow and the next day. So there's this trend now that companies want to start building an intelligence layer that helps them make decisions faster, that helps them understand how the organization is operating. And it doesn't have to be something that's just stored inside of our heads. Obviously, there's good and bad implications for that. We want to be very sensitive to governance and be sure we're not tracking private one-on-one conversations or things that shouldn't go into a company institutional memory. But the stuff that's public, that sits in like public folders or in group meetings, in public repositories and systems of records, the ability to just have like a centralized dashboard to say, all right, we use 7 different cloud tools to run our business, but we don't have the option to have a magnifying glass in one place that tells us about all 7. So I think that this emergence of more agents, and I think this concept of like institutional memory so that agents and humans can coexist, I am extremely bullish on that because we need to start creating some more efficiencies inside of the companies that we operate in. We need to give companies the ability to move faster, to stay competitive. And quite honestly, I love the fact that human beings now all understand AI. There's lots of people that do vibe coding and build their own products. You just told me you do routines and co-work. When you started, Ken, you had just learned about AI less than a year ago, and here you are now. You're pretty bleeding edge on this stuff. So just the velocity at which it happened for you, which is amazing. You were tech savvy before, but you're like AI bleeding edge savvy now. The velocity and just the playing field that's been leveled for everybody is incredible. The abundance that's available to anybody that's curious and has an open mind is just unbelievable right now. So it's the greatest era. I think 2026 so far, and I've been in the AI space for about 5 years, I think 2026 has been the most exciting, the fastest moving. And I'm just extremely bullish on the second half of this year being given to agents and memory. I can't predict what's going to happen next year because stuff changes so quickly. But what I do know for certain is that there's going to be more acceptance that AI is here to stay. It's not a fad. And organizations are going to start developing their strategy on how this can become something long term. And it's absolutely the work that Spedge does, which is AI strategy, development and design of how the technology can work, and then the actual implementation work. So we've been busy doing this stuff, and it's only ramping up. And it's so exciting to be working with the clients in the various industries that we do because we have a front row seat at just some of the amazing innovation that's coming out. And a lot of that stuff comes from the folks they're not the technology leaders at these companies. They're the frontline folks or the non-technical folks that bring a different spin on everything. So I'm really, really bullish on the agent and institutional memory stuff that's going to be happening later this year.
Well, that's cool. I can't wait to see what happens. And if you want to get more information, maybe you want to dabble in AI and maybe you don't even know if your business is ready for it yet. We'd love to talk with you about it. You can go to spedge.ai. That's spej.ai. And you can get, set up a meeting with us. We'd love to just talk with you about it, maybe get some education going with your company. If you want to keep up to date on what's going on, we're going to try and dabble in what's coming up, what's new, how's it working, even some failures too. We'll throw those out there on this podcast. So it's called the Prompt First Ask Later podcast, and you can find that whether you go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can do a search for Prompt First Ask Later. YouTube, we've got a channel there as well. Obviously, if you're watching this, you're on there and you're seeing this. You can also go to pfalpod.com and you can get the details on this podcast and stay up to date. And we'd love to be able to chat with you, make some comments, got some questions, throw them our way. We'd love to answer those and learn together with you in this whole AI space that we're living in right now. Sagar, always good, man, to talk with you. And welcome back. We've been missing you. You've been gone, and it's good to finally chat and visit. So looking forward to the next episode.
Thanks, Ken. We'll see you all in the next one. Take care.